It is in fact time to give our hot takes. So here we go. Yeah, you know what I mean? I'm super duper excited. So here's how it's gonna go, Fonz. Today we are talking about, and thank you very much for buying your own peppers and not making me send you any. Today we are trying Ole Rico dried habaneros. That's right, folks. You heard it here first. Dry habaneros. If you haven't opened your bag yet, oh, you already opened your bag. You already opened it. Okay, good. Mm-hmm. So what are you smelling right now?
The smell is not very intimidating. It's almost like we have these dried apricots at the house as well, and it smells kind of like that. I think it's going to trick you a little bit.
It's kind of inviting, right? I mean, it's kind of like, ooh,
they're sweet smelling.
Yeah, kind of sweet smelling. So that's the thing is, that's why I picked habaneros, because obviously there is don't do it yet.
I know. It looks like something my dog leaves on the floor, behind her. So,
and then you find it like a few weeks later.
Yeah.
The thing about habaneros is they actually have really good flavor. And there were kind of like notes with these peppers, because I did sample it. I wanted to see what we were working with and make sure you could handle it. And there are notes that are actually pretty tasty. And I didn't really try it with water. I held off as long as I could from drinking water whenever I sampled it. So it's going to be interesting. After you eat it, I'm still going to hold out as long as I can. But after you eat it, I'm going to ask you a question, and then, we'll go from there. But there's a specific reason I didn't pick. I didn't want to go too crazy. Habaneros can be really hot. We're talking about like 300,000 Scoville units, right? I can go from like 300,000 to, what was it? I remember texting you.
Was it 700,000? Something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know if it cracked 1 million, but
no, okay. So it can go from 100,000 to 300,000 K of Scoville units. So basically, your average jalapeno never touches that. But a really, really hot jalapeno can, in fact, be the same heat as a really low tier habanero. So in a high tier habanero doesn't even touch the surface of what, like a scorpion pepper or even a ghost pepper can do. Because ghost pepper, you're looking at like 1 million Scoville. So who knows? Maybe we'll get some duds. But let's go ahead. We're both gonna pop it at the same time.
Alrighty.
I'm really scared. Okay, so here we go. One.
And the whole thing's edible here?
The whole thing's edible. Yeah, there's no weird stem, but just, you can wash it down with some water, throw some fire on the flame, you know what I mean? And we'll go from there. So 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Oh, it's dry. It's almost unedible. Oh boy. It's like a leathery sand is the best texture I can think of.
Get it all around the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Heating up a little bit for you?
Yeah. It's just the worst texture to try and break down with we're like a cow chewing on curds or whatever they do, grass.
Cud. Yeah, cud. Yeah, so wash it down. Do what you got to do. Oh, my. So, Fonz.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So, Fonz, the Danger Days, the true lives of the Fabulous Killjoys, the fourth studio album released by My Chemical Romance. What are your hot takes?
Oh, breathing makes it worse. Oh God. I try to not breathe this entire time. My hot takes on the album itself.
Yep.
I love it, man. It's one of my favorite albums from them. I love the fact that it's so different. Like they're taking so many chances, and this is them just completely taking these chances with the style of music they make, but also putting the same MCR stamp on each song. Like it definitely feels like MCR the way they're presenting these songs, but they're going into these like pop punky, like super hard into pop punk. There's some synthwave stuff. You have still a lot of the dope guitar riffs from like the 70s in there, and every song, the guitar riffs I think are crazy amazing, and almost all the tracks. But I really dug how they took a big swing with this. I think they nailed it. At the time, just like you're saying, I was pretty negative and I just skipped it. But I'm glad I came back to it years later because it's one of my favorite albums. And that Na 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 song is maybe the most energetic song that they've ever created, where it's just adrenaline straight to your bones, where you're energized if you're dying. This is, an angel's hand coming out and pulling you back and just like kicking you out the door at the same time, right onto the road. It's so dope. And the way they end this album too is my favorite. That ending track is a perfect way to come right back out of that album. It's just so energetic, so dope. Yeah, I love this album.
Nice. How you feeling?
It's like fire or molten lava along the walls of my mouth. It's nuts.
Dude, like how's the roof of your mouth? Like I am struggling.
Apparently I chewed it all on like one side. So one side of my mouth feels like it's melting through and just like falling out of my skin. But yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, I got to agree with you though. I think, in a lot of ways, like all this music is so much different than what they usually do. We talk about all the time how, I talk about, talking really makes it worse.
Yeah.
We talk about I talk about in my reviews all the time how a band, whenever they decide to change their sound, they oftentimes, it can be hard for them to kind of relate the same attitude or the same feeling that they've had before. And they really nailed it on this album, though. Like, I think this album has aged super duper well as a whole. But I don't think it was right for the time whenever it came out. It was interesting how they decided to just change styles completely. And a couple of things I think this album suffers from. I think it's entirely too long. I understand wanting to kind of present the idea of a longer story and like present a lot of different songs and stuff. Wow, this is horrible. It's so bad. Are you on fire still? Is it getting any better for you? Or is it getting worse?
It feels bright. Like it feels loud and bright in my mouth. It's just like if Pop Rocks were made out of acid or something. It's like melting through, but it's tingly at the same time.
Yeah. I feel you. I think this album's too long. There's like 17 songs on this album or something like that.
30, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So 30 songs.
I'm just exaggerating.
I mean, there's a lot. So it felt like, and also I feel like there's only a few songs. I gotta take a drink.
Oh, who's the man now, Gabe? Come on, man. You're not mad enough for makeup, and you're not mad enough to not be able to take a sip of your little baby sip there.
Shut up, Fonz. I feel like there is kind of that. I feel like the 2-star songs are "Na Na Na Na" and "Sing." I feel like really steal the show on this record. So it feels like we have a lot of songs that are really, really good. I probably listened to this album 6 or 7 times in my entire life now at this point. And there are songs that I like on the album, but there's songs that I can't remember there's songs that I can't remember the names to that I do like, but I don't think really have that star quality that Na 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 and Sing have. Can you speak to anything like that? Like, what are some of your favorite songs? Can you name some by name?
Yeah. So, and I'm cheating. I have the track list in front of me, but Vampire Money is that ending track, and that one is just such a kick in the pants, man, and it's just so energetic. So there's that middle, guitar riff, and that guitar riff is just so nuts because it's almost like this throwback to like 80s punk bands with this entire track, and the way they merge that guitar riff in the middle, it reminds me of Back to the Future when Marty McFly is doing his solo and melting everyone's minds with this solo for the future, and they're in the 40s or whatever. It's kind of like that. Like it's that same style of solo, but it's on steroids, on crack, and it's blasted through like 50-foot speakers. It's just that next level solo, which makes that entire track that much more fun. But there's that one. I love Destroya. The build up to that chorus and the way that Destroya's part just keeps going on. I really dig that. And it's almost got this like Rage Against the Machine vibe to it. Even Kids from Yesterday, that one goes hardest into the 80s synth vibe with this poppiness, almost like The Cure. But I think they nail it with adding this weird moodiness, but it's this moody, hopeful song at the same time as it is. It's very interesting. And I think that was maybe the one where they took the most of a chance with that song in particular. And it stands out to me because of that. But yeah, those are some of my standout songs for this album.
Nice. I like the song that goes, I think it's right after, it's like the 3rd or 4th track on the song or on the album. Bulletproof Heart.
Yeah.
Let me make sure I actually. Yeah, because it starts with Gravity. I really like that song too. I think a lot of what you're saying is there's a lot of like The Cure, there's a lot of David Bowie on this. I think there's a lot of like just kind of like Space Cadet stuff on this album. And I have to ask, like, why do you think that this album doesn't necessarily work for everybody?
It's funny because I was racking my brain thinking the same thing. I think one of the first feelings people had at the time was it was too poppy and not moody enough, not emo enough. But if you look back honestly and like dig through MCR's discography to that point, Black Parade is super poppy. Three Cheers is also super poppy. Maybe the first one, the I Bring You My Bullets, is maybe the more like super grungy punk type of style, post punk. But if you look back, all their stuff is very poppy. It's just kind of put through this different lens, and it is darker at the same time. But so I think if you honestly put those albums together, Danger Days isn't that much different, but they are going for a lot of these chances within the songs. Na 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 is way more pop punk, and I think that already, if being that song coming out first, it set the theme for the entire album, but it also turned off a lot of people because that album is that song itself. So if you're not on board for that song, then you got to take a hike because that whole album is that same style. Although if you do dedicate yourself to the album, there's a lot of these cooler moments within the album itself. Like I mentioned, Destroya, which is really dope, or that last track, it has that same vibe of like older, harder MCR songs. So I think that Na 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 song is what turned a lot of people off because it's this hard lean and kicks the door open into complete pop punk, but I think still with that MCR style, but a lot of people weren't feeling it.
Yeah, totally. Is your stomach hurting by chance?
Not yet. I wonder if it would just went straight to my butt or something and just bypassed my stomach. So we're gonna find out.
How are you feeling though? Is it getting any better for you?
It's dying now in my mouth. Yeah, now it's dying. It does feel a bit numb almost, like I got a shot at the dentist or something. But
yes, like, and earlier, like 2 days ago, whenever I ate the other one, like the roof of my mouth was numb and like kind of swollen for a little bit.
That's not good.
Yeah, no, I don't think it was. But here we are.
What are these even for? Like, why are you able to buy in such a large pack? Are these for cooking or for assassinating someone?
Like for like making chili.
Oh Jesus!
But I see people, but I see people eating them on TikTok all the time. So I was like, why not? Yeah. So yeah, man, I'm struggling. You brought up something really interesting about how all those other records are pop, and they are super duper poppy. I think of like My Chemical Romance. I'm sorry, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge, kind of being more reminiscent, or even being like kind of compared to like In Utero a little bit by Nirvana. Like In Utero, on the surface, you think like, oh, this is the follow up to Nevermind. It's like, yeah, it is the follow up to Nevermind. But the way Dave Grohl put it, he put like these really dark, noisy songs ended up being some of the most popular music on the radio whenever it was released. Same thing with My Chemical Romance, with Three Cheers. You have some of the darkest songs ever, really kind of being sprinkled and salted with emo vibes and like kind of darker vibes and stuff like that. But in actuality, it was supposed to be for the mainstream, for pop. And it's a shame we don't have a lot of that nowadays. Like it's all that everyone has the look, but they don't have the feel that My Chemical Romance had. Then with my, Welcome to the Black Parade, it was a similar type story, but I think they were able to be a little more ambitious with it. And, like, okay, we love Pink Floyd, we love Queen, we love all these like legendary rock bands. How can we tell our own story and like, kind of like make, write a love letter to those bands? And I feel like that in a lot of ways, that's what the Black Parade really is. And honestly, it's up there. I think it's comparable with The Wall, even something like that. Or even some of Queen stuff, in terms of theatrics and just in terms of how well it's executed. But I think for the time period whenever it was released, Danger Days, if you would have released that album now, it would have slain. I think it would have done amazing. It probably would have been number one in a lot of ways, just because it's a much different landscape now. And it makes sense how there's been kind of a resurgence for My Chemical Romance and this record because of all the things that are happening in the world right now. So it's kind of crazy how it's supposed to be set in 2019 and how we see a lot of the events that are depicted within the story that they were kind of trying to present kind of being brought to the forefront in a lot of ways, on this record. And it's insane how timely it is even now. I do think this is my biggest hot take. I do think the length of the album takes away from it. And for me personally, because it makes those big moments, those really dope moments, less memorable and harder to find in some ways for me. And honestly, I don't have time to listen to an hour-long record every single time. So for me, that's the biggest thing, I think. But what's your take? Like, what's like a negative you had for this record?
Well, I think there are a couple songs that I don't know about drop completely, but maybe rework, and if not, maybe drop them. But there's at least two. So I'm trying to go back to Summertime is a bit of that. It's a slower song. I think could maybe be dropped, but there's another song in particular that I'm blanking on. But there's at least two tracks where they bring down the speed, the tempo of the album, which at the same time you do have to balance it out. It can't just be like pounding your head over and over for every track. So I understand you kind of have to play around with the timing or the mood and kind of decipher or build this route that you want to take the listener to go through, and you kind of want these ups and downs. So I dig that and I understand that, but there are some points in the album where it just kind of slows down a bit too much. And although they are taking their chances at those points of the album itself too. So yeah, I mean, the length of the album wasn't really a big turnoff for me. If anything, that very last track that Dr. Death-Defying is on, is that track for me is too long, because I get what they're trying to do. He's signing off, which was like kind of a nod to like old broadcasts actually ending their broadcast, which doesn't happen anymore. And also nobody watches TV, but they used to end the news at like 3 a.m. and then play a Star Spangled Banner and then say, see you later until like, 6 a.m., 7 a.m. But they try and do that here by playing the entire song. It gets kind of boring by the time you get that distortion at the end. Maybe if they had MCR actually do their own rendition, that could have been dope. But so that was the only point where I actually honestly felt like, okay, this is going on a bit long. Otherwise, the length of the album never bothered me. It was just maybe some of the songs I would kind of remove in general.
Do you think this is one like you throw on? Because for me, I'm also the type of person like, oh, there are certain songs I'll hear where I'm like, I got to listen to the entire thing right now. After I hear it, is this one of those albums for you?
I wish I could say it was. I think I end up picking certain songs out of the album itself and listening to those. But Three Cheers for sure is one of those. Before I hear one, I have to listen to the entire album. That album is so solid. Even Black Parade had some dips here and there where I kind of lost interest, even though a lot of the other tracks are very solid. But Danger Days almost hits that for me. But there's at least two that are holding me back from like listening to the entire album in one go.
Yeah, well, I do really enjoy this album. I think it does a good job of doing what it's trying to do. This isn't one that I'm going to throw on all the time. I don't even think this is one that I would buy on vinyl personally. But I do enjoy it. I don't think that actually takes away from the experience itself. But yeah, I mean, I think overall it accomplishes what it's trying to accomplish, and I think that at times there are interesting pacing issues, and I wish there was more standouts in the record of stuff. I wish we had more of those big moments. I wish it flowed the same way as the previous two albums, but for me personally, it just doesn't quite hit that. While it is enjoyable, it doesn't quite hit that mark for me. So, I mean, what do you have any like final thoughts before you rate this bad boy?
Yeah, you know what? I was kind of researching the album a bit, and one thing I didn't realize when they were making it, and they were pretty vocal about it in interviews at the time, was they were coming off of Black Parade, and they found themselves trying to reach that same success and that same vibe of Black Parade when they're recording their next album, and they ended up recording and almost mastering this album that didn't have their heart in it. They realized that this stuff isn't really what we want to play and put our name on it. So they scrapped that album. So somewhere there exists versions of this album and other songs that haven't been released entirely that are part of that album. I think they said an actual name they had at the moment, but they decided to throw it out the window and they recorded Na Na Na. And that was the first one right out of the gate. And they said, you know what, let's build an album around this. And they went back to the drawing board, which was crazy risky. And I imagine expensive to do that because the other albums are basically done and took more time too. So I really found that interesting. And I wonder what that other album sounded like. I know they have mentioned on one of the interviews that at least two of these tracks survived from that last album, but were just like crazy. Reworked into this newer track list on Danger Day. So yeah, I just found it interesting that they originally had something else planned, but they felt like it wasn't taking a chance and it was very much more of the same. And I think in the long run, that was the best route to go because even though this is a very divisive album, it's them really trying and pushing themselves and being creative. And I think that could have been, if they went the other route, that could have been more of a nail of the coffin, like just showing, hey, MCR is done. They can't really, change it up. It's just more of the same stuff and we're kind of over it. So I like that this is such a different route. And I think that solidifies them as just one of the best, bands of all time. And because they tried to take chances and they succeeded and built all these different, feelings within these genres. And I think they nailed it. But yeah, I just found that super interesting.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I never heard that. Um, the heat has subsided for me a little bit. I'm
Pretty much, yeah.
still got some lingerings. And what I tell you, like right about 12, 15 minutes, you know what I mean? Like it'd be done. But
It was tough though.
congratulations, you made it through it. And you didn't drink any water.
Yeah.
Wow, you're a real man. Look at you go. It's all those hikes you take is what it is.
I need it takes. I've been really chillaxing on the hikes lately. I need to get back into it, but
yeah, well,
I might die in my first hike here.
yeah, I would say, well, you know, haven't we all? Yeah, I might die in my first hike here. If you go
My first hike back.
Yeah, your first hike back, and then with the background, yeah. So you know, there's lots of rumors going around, and it's all been it's all been but confirmed that there's going to be a new album. Do you think we're going to get more of Danger Days stuff, or do you think we're going to get more of like what we saw before?
Yeah, that's very good question. I don't know because I think you're right. It is basically confirmed. And I was, you know what, it bummed me out recently. So I was going on their YouTube channel, and it's basically a year ago today. Not today. It's been around a year that they started promoting the new tour, and that there is the rumblings of what looked like a new album. The way they're calling back to those first 4 albums, that was all a year ago. So it's just such a huge bummer to see that we could have been in this world now already with new MCR music, a new MCR tour. So it is what it is. But yeah, you have to think where are they going to take the sound, because the only really glimpses of that everyone's done, and other members are doing their own side projects. But with Gerard, he has been putting out music on his own. But I don't know if that's a way you can't take anything from that as far as describing the vibe that MCR would go, because that's his own thing. He has done music for Umbrella Academy that are callbacks to like 70s kind of rock sometimes, and they're a bit more of a different vibe. So I'm just kind of putting that all in my brain and wondering, like, what do they push out with all these different influences now? What do they end up doing, and what's the future of MCR? I don't know at the end of the day. I wonder if it will be an eclectic mix of all this. I don't think they end the discography the way they did with Danger Days and not keep trying to change it up. But at the same time, I think they're very aware of the fact that they've built such a huge career over this long span of time that they got to have callbacks within the songs to those older albums. They have to have the flair of emo, of post-punk, but still have the flair of Danger Days in there too. So I think they're going to mix all that together, and that's such a hard thing to do, man. I tip my hat to them, because to try and nail that is nuts. Or they go completely different and put out, a hip hop album. I don't know, man, because after Danger Days, they're trying to switch it up but still put their stamp on it. So I'm just super excited, and I can't wait. I'm just so hungry for some new music. I feel like they still could have given it to us this year and let us all ingest it and get even more hype for that new tour, which it eventually will come. So I don't know. I go to bed at night thinking the same thing. What will the new MCR sound like?
Yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot. And if we know anything about My Chemical Romance, we know that they're visionaries, right? I think they just what that story you told me really just like drives that point home. I think if they get an idea, if they had an idea that was right for the climate, so to speak, a year ago, and that climate changed very, very quickly within, a few months of them putting all that stuff out, maybe they've said, okay, let's hold off and see what happens. And who knows, maybe we'll get something completely different or an addition to, you know what I mean? As a result of the stuff we've gone through the past year, you know what I mean? It's like, I think that there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, in terms of like putting everything together that's come before. And I love whenever bands do that. Like, for instance, I think about like Bring Me the Horizon and how, they put out a pop album 3 years ago, and then, but it still felt like Bring Me the Horizon. And people were like, oh, that's not heavy metal, yada, yada. And then they answered with a new album that came out this year, or, at the end of 2020, that was like, all right, you want heavy metal, we'll give you heavy metal, and then we'll also give you more pop stuff too. So I love whenever bands innovate on their sound and make new stuff from the old stuff while adding new stuff in. And I also love whenever bands go a completely different route and it also lands. And I think if anyone's going to do that well, I think it's going to be My Chemical Romance. So, we'll hold out hope. This will be, this is it for now, for My Chemical Romance, but keep your ear to the ground, because me and Fonz might be coming back to eat some peppers yet again. I was thinking, what we should have done? Since this is so awful, like these do not taste good. Like, no, they don't. What we need to do is we need to get like some, like, I'll make whoever guessed, I'll make them go get some fresh jalapenos. So what we'll do is we'll start with that, and then this is kind of like the final boss. You know what I mean? Like to kind of put a nail in the coffin. And you
That
know,
sounds
that'll be,
terrible.
dude, it's gonna be so, you lucked out. You lucked out before I got any ideas, but you know, there's that. So we come to the end of the review now. You know, we've talked about Danger Days. We've done the thing. We've eaten the peppers. We've sweated it out. The flames have been had. And they're gone for me pretty much for the most part. My right side of my, like the back of my mouth still kind of hurts, but I'm good for the most part. It comes to the point where we got to rate this bad boy, this record. So official wannabe critic rules now are, and I don't know how much you listen to the show, but no decimals. So no 0.5s, no nothing. You got to give a round number, a solid number. What I'm going to throw it to you. What does Danger Days, the True Lives, the Fabulous Killjoys get from you, Fonz?
It's a tough one. I think I have to consider their entire discography to kind of give it the number, put it in its right place. I would give it a 7 out of 10.
Wow. Okay. Right on. That's lower. I thought you were going to go much higher because you were really talking good about it. So like a 7 for you, is that like, do you consider it average or do you consider it better than average? Because I mean, isn't it like a 7 average?
I would say a 6 to 5 is average. 6 to be in 6 average, 5 okay, and then going lower from there. But I say 7 is good. Like if I'm thinking of the IGN scale, 7 is a good score, 70%, and then it gets great to amazing to like a masterpiece at the level of 10. So I would put it around 7. Even though I love this album, but it's hard to compete with 3 Cheers, where I would hold that as a 10. I might even hold Black Parade for me personally at around a 9. With Black Parade, Famous Last Words, and that album, that's got to be my favorite MCR track that's existed. So for me, I put that a little bit higher, but I think 7 is no chump, but it's just doesn't reach those highs, but I still love it.
Yeah. So I think, the hardest thing for me with this review is we asked the question, it is so hard to be objective with something that's subjective. And we asked the question, what was the creator aiming for? What were they going for? What were they trying to make me feel? And Gerard Way told us there's no story. This is just for fun, basically. Like, we're just like doing our thing. So it leads me to think it's like, well, I really enjoyed the stuff that I was listening to. But it just doesn't quite hit the mark for most of the album. It does have its moments where I'm like, that's more like it. Like that feels like My Chemical Romance. But most of the time it just feels like these guys just chilling, having a good time, not chilling, but just kind of like just jamming out together. It's like a jam record. It's just like I said before, like Space Cadet stuff. And it's really out there, but I think that's kind of what they were going for,
Mm-hmm.
So while it doesn't necessarily speak to me all the time, the entire time through, there are people that this album is their favorite one from My Chemical Romance. A lot of people actually I've heard that this is like their favorite one, which is kind of interesting. So it's like, okay, how do we rate this thing? So for me personally, even though it doesn't quite get there, I think in a really weird roundabout way, they tried really hard and succeeded in a lot of ways for the most part to do what they were setting out to do, which is create a post-apocalyptic album set in a corporate-controlled world that is really kind of a mirror of how America itself has always been. Whenever you look at it, we've always been basically just kind of been barely scraping by while the corporate yoo-hoos get to do whatever they want. So I think it does a really good job. I'm gonna go 8 out of 10. I think this is a great album for what it's trying to do. I did find myself I wanted to give it a 7.5, and I'm like, I find myself leaning more towards an 8 than I do a 7. But I think also those scores are so close together that they're almost interchangeable. I feel like a 9 and a 10 is kind of interchangeable, and like a 7 and an 8 is kind of interchangeable in a lot of ways too. Like there's it's minute differences, in opinion and how it goes. But there you have it though. A 7 and an 8 from the Wannabes on the hot take. So what do you know? We freaking did it, dude. We did it. We ate the peppers. We did the thing. I cannot wait to go back and edit this footage and see what it looks like and see our reactions. Because do you even remember what you said like through the entire review?
I don't know what happened this entire day because of this. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
dude,
just erased my memories. But I'm sure I made some weird, really funky faces and was crying. But yeah,
yeah,
it is
it's
what it
gonna be
is.
fun. It's gonna be fun to go through that footage and see, what we even said, because I don't remember what I said. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was our review of My Chemical Romance's album Danger Days, The True Lives of the Fabulous Killjoys. So, Fonz, I want to thank you so much for being the first guest, for this particular segment. I really appreciate it. One more time, tell people where they can find you.
Well, you can find me never taking a sip, even though Gabe is just a little sippy boy over there. Never taking a sip, but you can find us on Twitter at Plastic Heart Pod, where we post the show, post clips, and all kinds of stuff to keep up to date on the podcast. Also, youtube.com/Plastic Hearts Podcast. Same thing with Twitch and the whole rigmarole. But yeah, you can find us on the internet where I'm there all day, every day.
Nice. Very good. You know where to find us, ladies and gentlemen. You can find us at Wannabe Critic Productions on Twitter. I am _Wannabe Critic on Twitter as well, if you want to follow me personally. Wannabe Critic Productions, anywhere, you'll be able to find it. Also, shout out to our sponsors, sponsored in part by Raise and Pop Cult USA. There's some links down there. Get you some good stuff. It'll be great. And definitely check out the links to our other projects down in the description below as well. So that's it. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for preparing yourselves for a plethora of hot takes and potentially unpopular opinions. I am Gabriel Fast. I will always be the wannabe critic. Say goodbye, Fonz.
Bye-bye.
Hey there. So, you have stumbled onto one of the many projects that we have over at Wannabe Critic Productions. This just happens to be the music project. I review music, and I have ideas to do other things music related on the YouTube channel and the podcast. I just have to say thank you so much for checking it out. I really, really appreciate it. But if you want to check out more stuff that we have going on over on our, various projects, I encourage you to go check out some of the projects in the description down below, whether it be our YouTube channel where we post podcasts. There's going to be Let's Plays, there's reviews, there's interviews, there's all kinds of things over there. But we've kind of morphed it to be a kind of catch-all for all the different things that we do other than music. So I encourage you to go check that out. That being said, though, thank you so much for listening today or watching today. I really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on podcast services, make sure you leave us a review. I would really appreciate it, and it would help, keep me relevant. So I am Gabriel Fast. I will always be the wannabe critic.